So if you spent almost 2 weeks, you put in plenty of time, plenty of effort, you've been patient in creating your starter, now it's ready to bake your first bread. Using sourdough and baking naturally leavened bread really raises the bar. It is really worlds apart from yeasted bread, and in my opinion, it's well worth the commitment to get these kind of results. And once you've done your first loaf, you won't be able to stop. So let's start. The equipment is the same that we use for yeasted doughs. A bowl, scales, a scraper, a probe, a bread basket, but if you don't have one, just use a cake tin lined with a tea towel. You'll need a razor blade for scoring the bread, or use a serrated knife if you don't have a razor. Now I strongly suggest getting this piece of equipment. It's a cast iron pot with a lid. This will help you recreate the conditions that are inside a proper baker's oven. And they are quite affordable, and it will last you a lifetime if you get one. Now make sure your leaven is nice and ripe. Check the temperature of your kitchen, and make sure your water is around the same temperature, if it's around 20 to 22 degrees Celsius. So for this recipe you'll need strong white bread flour, wholemeal flour, salt, water that's been tempered, and the leaven that we prepared earlier. So let's begin as always. Get your bowl, add your water, then add your leaven. And if you don't have this, click the link in the top right corner where I'll show you how to make one. Now give it a good stir, and then add your salt and mix until any large salt flakes have been dissolved. It's much easier to do it now than later when you're trying to work the dough. Now once that's done, you can add both of your flours, the white and the wholemeal. It is advisable to use the same flour for feeding your starter and also for baking, so that your starter knows what it's getting into. Now grab your scraper and mix until you don't see any more dry flour. Now tip it out on the table, start kneading. Now if you own a mixer, like a KitchenAid or something like that, then just add all the ingredients to the mixing bowl, and using the dough hook, knead for about 4 to 5 minutes on medium speed. But I prefer to show you how to do it by hand. And what I like to do when I knead my dough is to use the heel of my right hand to press down and forwards, and use the fingers of my left hand to fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand, and then turn and repeat. It will be a bit sticky at the beginning, but just keep working it and the dough will become a lot less sticky and a lot smoother and easier to work with. Normally if you do it by hand, it doesn't take more than 5 to 6 minutes to get decent gluten development in a dough like this. So you don't really have to put in a lot of effort to make this. Now once you're ready, scrape it all up, then place it in your bowl for the first proof. You should always take the temperature of your dough. That way you will know what to do. If it's too warm, put it in a cooler corner or proof it for less time. If it's too cool, you do it the other way around. This one's about right at 23.5 degrees Celsius. So cover and proof for 1 hour, and then we'll give it a fold. Folding will increase the gluten structure, and it will also even out the temperature of the dough. We don't want it to be cool on the outside and warm on the inside, or vice versa. So to perform this fold, you want to dust your dough with flour lightly. This is just to prevent it from sticking to the table, because we will be tipping it out. And now using your dough scraper, release the dough from the sides of the bowl and tip it out on your table, smooth side down. And you always want to remember where the smooth side and where the rough side is, because the smooth side eventually will be the top of the bread when it's finished baking. Now there's a couple ways to fold your dough. I'll show you this first. You flatten it out, fold in the sides and then kind of roll it up. And obviously make sure you end up with the smooth side pointing upwards. Tighten it against the table, place it back into the bowl. We'll cover it and proof it for 1 more hour. And after that, I'll show you a different way of folding. So as it's rising slowly, in the first 2 hours, you won't see much of a change in volume. But that's fine. The main proofing stage will be in the fridge overnight, and that's when the magic happens. So that's the second proof done. We can do another fold now. You can see that the dough is rising up a little bit. It's a bit puffy, but nothing major. So once again, grab your flour, dust your dough ball, and then using your scraper, release it from the sides of the bowl and tip it out smooth side down on your table. So this time I'll show you a different fold. Once again, you want to pat your dough out, stretch it out a little bit, make it a little bit flatter. But now, just take a corner and fold it over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. And you'll see it forming a natural ball. And then flip it upside down again, tighten it against the table, place it back into your bowl, and we'll refrigerate it overnight. This is called cold proofing. There's different ways of proofing bread. Doing it in the fridge will slow it down, and it fits my schedule personally. I don't have time to wait all day for the bread to rise, so I'll just do it in the fridge overnight. And that way, I don't have to sacrifice my free time for this. So as you can see, it has really risen overnight. It's nice and fluffy, full of air. And we are ready to shape our loaf. Once again, as before, get your flour, dust your dough, release it from the sides of the bowl using your scraper, tip it out on the table, smooth side down. You want to be quite gentle at this point. We don't want to knock out any of the fermentation gases that we've accumulated overnight. So to shape it, pat it out lightly. You want to stretch it out just a little bit so it's easier to shape. If your fingers are sticking, just use a little bit of flour to dust your hands. Now prepare your basket. Make sure to dust it sufficiently. You don't want too much flour. It's not like we're creating a flour crust. This is mainly from preventing the dough from sticking to the basket. Now grab your dough piece, fold one side over the middle and the other side over the first side, creating kind of like a triangle shape, and then pull, roll and tuck from the top until you reach the bottom. You can tuck in the corners at the end. You want to roll it quite tight. This does take some skill, but the more times you do it, the better you will get at it. If you mess it up, don't worry, the basket will keep your dough in shape anyway. Make sure to pop any large air bubbles because they will burn as it bakes. And always place your dough in the basket smooth side down, because when we bake it, it will be inverted onto our baking vessel and the smooth side will be pointing up. Now dust your loaf with just a little bit of flour, then cover it with cling film and we'll leave it to proof for around 3 hours. You want a little bit of flour so the cling film doesn't stick. And yes, it will definitely take around 3 hours. Depending on your dough temperature and the temperature of your kitchen, just know that good things come to those who wait. After the first 2 hours, you want to preheat your oven and your pan to 240 degrees Celsius with no fan. And by the time your dough is ready, your oven and your pan will be hot enough. It should almost double in size, and you should really see the difference. When you lift it up, it should feel quite light, and if you give it a shake, it should jiggle around a bit. And now we need to get ready for the crucial part. Make sure not to burn your table, so use something like this, and get a bit of flour for dusting, and your razor blade, or your serrated knife, and then your hot pan. Now get your dough and tip it out right in the middle of the pan. And then dust it with a bit more flour, just to give it an even coat. Make it look nice. And then grab your razor or your knife and do one long cut from one end to the other. And make sure it's about 1 inch deep or so. If you don't cut it deep enough, it's not going to open properly. And then get your lid on, place your pan into the oven, bake for 20 minutes with the lid on. So 20 minutes later comes the magic part. Get the lid off and you see what you got. This never gets old. It's like a surprise every time. And now get it back in the oven and bake it for 20 more minutes just to finish it off. So the reason for using the lid is to trap the steam inside. It helps the bread expand as it's baking. If you don't have steam, the crust sets too quickly, it dries out and the dough doesn't rise. And that's your first sourdough bread. Let it cool down now on a rack for at least an hour if you have any willpower. I know I don't, I always cut into the bread while it's still warm. But you know what, do whatever you like, you've earned it. So as we all know, the simple things in life are some of the best, so get yourself some butter and some sea salt, and that's literally all you need for fresh bread. And as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, write them down in comments. Subscribe for weekly videos on baking. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.